Hey, this is AnnRenee
and Gwenn Girl.
Welcome to AHA Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us and for your continued support and listenership. Listening ship on the good ship lollipop. I don't know. But anyway, thanks.
Shirley, I love you. Shirley.
Thanks for being with us. We have a really special episode for you called Trinity of Self, Woman, Wife, Mother.
That's right.
We think this is going to just be an excellent conversation. We're honoring Women's History Month. And before we get down to the nitty gritty, we want to talk a little bit about, or just mention a little bit about some notable women who have made some marked achievements this month. And as I was jotting down some names, I noticed that they were all African American, and that was just by coincidence. I just wanted to say that, but I'm going to stick to my list. So we have Regina King, who was nominated for a Golden Globe in her first feature film doctoral debut for One Night in Miami. She didn't win, but yay, as Gwenn Girl said, yay for the nomination. Viola Davis, who has received her second Black Actress Oscar nomination.
What up,
Viola?
What up?
She is the most. She has received the most Oscar nominations in the Black actress, lead actress category with 2. So while that's something to celebrate, that is also something to change. We have to do better. Academy. Yeah. And then our girl Queen B, Beyonce, is in the house as the most Grammy celebrated artist ever. She won her 28th Grammy on last Sunday.
Wow. And then she drops the mic right now.
Drop it.
I mean, she could actually break it and not need to pick it up.
You know, that's Beyonce. That's B, baby. That's Peach Town, okay? Queen B. And then we got our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, being inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. Advocate, author, lawyer, and the 44th First Lady of the United States. So shout out to Miss Obama.
And dynamic role model for power and grace under persecution.
Absolutely.
For being the first in something so international. So yeah.
And made it her and did it authentically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Remain Michelle throughout, and remain the most popular of all the 4 vice president among the president, his wife, the vice president, and his wife. She remained consistently popular across the country and the globe throughout the 8 years they served,
and still so more popular.
Yeah, absolutely, but one of the most influential. Absolutely, one of the most influential people in the world. You're right about that, Gwenn Girl. And then we have the great Queen herself, who went home to be with the Lord recently, Miss Cicely Tyson. Who wrote her memoir titled "Just as I Am," that was released. Just as I Am. That was released just before she transitioned, and I believe Gwenn Girl said she said in an interview that she finally had something to say. She wrote her book because she finally had something to say.
Absolutely,
and so she was coming into the fullness of her woman. And so that's going to lead me to my esteemed colleague, Gwenn Girl.
Yeah. So in celebrating Women's History Month, my other girlfriends and I, we kind of kicked it off with sending a group text that we're in and just sending shout outs to the badass women that we knew. And those badass women happened to be us. And so it was a great celebration. Just honoring your girlfriends for who they are and who they have been, in your life throughout life. And those particular girlfriends, I have been friends with them 40 plus years. So, our history runs long and deep. And so I've watched them become badasses against divorce, motherhood, career choices, entrepreneurship, just the whole 9. And they all, it's 11 of us total. So then watching the other 10 go in and out of what it takes to get it all done as women, as wives and mothers, was an interesting ride. And so for me, our topic, the Trinity of Self, it was something that was dropped in my spirit a few years ago. I don't know if it first, maybe I believe I was 50 ish, early 50s, something like that. And it just was a conversation in my spirit. I was in one of those spaces in my life where I was just trying to figure it out. And what occurred to me that in every female, there are three, I'm going to say positions of anointing, if you would. And so the first one is the woman. The second one is the wife, and the third is the mother. And I want to hone in real quick on the wife, because as females, we have this opportunity, this anointing, this gifting to occur in all of these areas. And even if you've never been legally somebody's wife, typically women, when we start to date, when we're dating and our relationships become more intimate, we sort of take on the characteristics of a wife. So when we're talking about this topic, I don't want you to zone out because, oh, I've never been married, because it is the characteristics that we're talking more about in these positions, rather than if you were legally somebody's wife, if you would. So the woman is the most interesting of those three characteristics. And the woman who is the anchor for the other two is the role that we seem to be rushed through in life, or underprepared for. And AnnRenee and I were talking earlier when we were trying to figure out how we want to tackle this topic. When we become, young ladies, when we first get our cycle, and then, you hear in your household is like, oh, you become a young woman or you become a young lady. And if you were playing with dolls the day before and crayons and stuff, and then now the next day, since you've had this, a great occurrence, now you're a young woman. Well, what does that mean? So, I know for sure in my household and with my other friends, we were dreading when this was going to happen, because that was even accompanied by, and then you need to go and tell your daddy you become a young woman or a young lady, I mean, right? You remember that? Yeah. And so even that, now you're making me do something that is like, I'm not prepared for. And so then,
uncomfortable, awkward.
right. Cause it's like, I don't want to tell you this, but, it was an important conversation that they were trying to have with us, but they weren't telling us how to become this thing. It's like, now you're this thing, or you're on the road to this. And I mean, personally, I don't remember many other conversations leading up to it. Now as a young woman, these are the things you might need to consider. It's like the next thing you were introduced to was the fact that now you could possibly become a mother, because of this great occurrence. But I'm still this person who I don't have information. And so what I began finding out in my 50s was how I had progressed through life, and I've been married twice and I'm divorced twice. Put a tab there, guys. And I just moved on to these other positions, mothering and wifing and mothering, and I found myself in my 50s when the kids were no longer, they no longer needed the managing of a mother. I was on the brink of a divorce, so the wifing wasn't working, and there was this hole in me. There was this, this need. And I just, it's like, well, what is this? And it's like, it's your woman that needs attention. I had not heard that language before. I think I've seen examples of when they talked about women who become mothers late in life because they've gone after a career, and, depending on where you were observing that person, it may have been something that seemed, that got bastardized. It's like, oh, well, she's not a regular woman because, she put her career first, and, all of that. And so just not really understanding what all of that looked like, and those may well have been women who were in touch with, I need to complete me before I can go into these other roles. And so, in especially in the Black community, that's not necessarily our norm. We just didn't do it like that. And again, I'm just speaking about my range, and I believe, a pretty good range. And it's just not a conversation that had come up, the importance of um, finding out who you are, who your woman is and was meant to be. And so, this conversation, as I began to look at my life and how I've lived it, I can see where there was years that I was a mother. In my house, I was just absolutely a mother, and I was absolutely a wife. And even though there were moments taken to hang out with my girlfriends and just, decompress, they were just that, places where I was decompressing from my role as a wife or my role as a mother, but I still was not in tune to feeding my woman, if you would. I did not understand that as a concept. I was living a life, I'm going to say good, bad, or indifferent, that I wanted. I wanted to be, a wife, and I certainly wanted to be a mother, but I did not understand the sacredness of, fueling up my woman. I did not understand that the better care I was taking of my woman, the better I was going to be able to occur in those other spaces, because the woman is really the anchor. If we're looking for balance in our lives, to be able to be powerful in the other spaces we want to be in, and not have to apologize about, the kids, I put somebody in place to do the kids, because there's a lot of things we're guilted about in society when we break out of these normal expectations. And what I'm finding in my 60th year is that knowing who my woman is, it allows me to move in and out of those other roles unapologetically. If I know what my woman wants, I can, just flat footedly say, well, when it comes to this situation, like, if it's something with the kids. So if it's mothering, I'm like, well, you're at a certain age and this is what the expectation is. I don't need to do that kind of hand holding. I've got to allow myself to have that work tested that I've done as a mother. I don't need to be, landing a plane and taking it off and all of those things like that. And the same thing, with a wife, if there's things that are missing in the marriage, I now have the opportunity to check in to see if it is actually something that my woman needs, that the wife can't take care of, or just a role, a duty that I've pushed on to the wife and maybe hidden it there. And it's like, no, that's not that collaboration. This is your individual need right here. And so check into that. So, Auntie, you got anything to add to that?
Actually,
Wow.
yeah, actually, no, I was going to say I'm taking it back just a little bit, just a couple of notes, not really to add because you've covered things um, quite well. But I was thinking about the sort of the information explanation help with preparing us as girls to become
Mm-hmm.
women. And you're right about the conversations. I was just thinking whenever you were conversations were had where you talk where your future was discussed, it was as a mom or as a wife. You
Yes.
were never just going to be an adult female
Yeah.
individual.
An
Um,
individual.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So it's interesting that you said that, and then I was remembering a conversation um, that I was having with my mom and my aunt. And I must have been in my 20s at the time. And I remember mom say, "Oh, when I get married, when I get married, she said, even if I don't have the money, I'm gonna borrow, money. So I could have a fabulous wedding," which was not at any time anything I ever voiced.
Wow.
So
Wow.
I was like, when I was in college, uh, I paid my own way. And when I didn't have the money, I borrowed it
But she's
to
going to
pay it
borrow for you to
later.
be a
But yeah,
bride.
but she gonna bowl her. She gonna bowl out on this event.
Right.
Hey sis,
Right.
I needed you back a couple of years ago. But
Yeah.
yeah. So it's very much. it was very much wrapped up in the identity of who you are, uh, as
in those
in your
other
and those
collaborations.
other absolutely in those other roles, positions, collaborations.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So those are my
Yeah.
thoughts as you were talking.
Yeah, and that's the piece I think there, because the wife role, the mother role, those are collaborations, and that woman role, that is an individual thing that's going on. And don't get me wrong, it's like those other those other relationships reflect who you are actually, because if you're unhappy in those roles, you can always bring that back to your me, that woman. And I don't think it was a misstep. It wasn't intentional, but those are conversations that were needed, that were not had. And I think this is so important because there is such awareness, in the world today. Now, what people may be aware of, that's up for debate, but there is an awareness, and there's in the vernacular of the street, wokeness, if you would. And so, we're woke to so many things, and I think this is one of the things we need to be woke to in terms of balance, because again, just as this same trinity of self occurs in females, it is the same thing in males. There is a man, a husband and a father. And I think that there has been a disconnect in both genders. And so now with all of this awareness, okay, so what are we aware of? We're having conversations about humanity and all of that, but a lot of those things, it just goes back to how developed or underdeveloped we are. And I think this woman piece is just, it is the most underdeveloped part of ourselves when we look at how we are thrust into these other collaborations. For some of us, our order was, we became, mothers and then possibly wives, or some of us, it was just mothers. And though not a legal wife, we still were wife. And, if we decided to cohabitate, with a boyfriend or baby daddy or whatever that is. But, in those intimate spaces, for some who would never even do that, when you're in a relationship that has become intimate, we usually we'll do the sleepover kind of thing. And so if we're sleeping over, if he's sleeping some nights at my house and I'm sleeping some nights at his house, when we're in those positions, maybe when those first few months when you're doing that, it's fresh and it's boyfriend, girlfriend, but as you start to put in some time, it's wifing and husbanding, the way you kind of occur, the way you move, so we're automatically thrust into these collaborations. And I think a lot of our breakdown though is that we're connecting with people and we're not fully connected to ourselves. And so then we are unhappy sometimes because those people are disappointing us, where our power might be. It's like, well, let's, maybe you want to take that inward and see what really makes you happy. Children and marriages are a great shield to hide behind. If I'm not feeling good about a career choice or whatever, motherhood gives me the ability to hide in plain sight. We can be so heavy in our mothering, and everybody who has ever mothered anything knows if you're trying to show up and do it well, it can take a lot, and it will be a balancing act, and then if you have those other things in there, if you've got a husband in there or a lover or whatever, if you're taking care of parents or just whatever, you will get a pass on not taking care of your woman, because everybody knows it's like, oh, that mothering is like, oh my God, it's just everything. But it's interesting because by the time your kids kind of age out of all of that, then you're alone again in some sort of way. And it will bring you back to that original underdeveloped state, you as a woman, what do you need? And so, like I
I
said,
just
go
I
ahead.
just wanted to say, not only there was an excellent point about that, mothering and wifing can mask, um, you're underdeveloped woman, but and hiding behind being and you can be an excellent parent, but not only does it mask you and you're celebrated for it. So now I
Yes.
cannot do this. I cannot spend time on this, and then I'm celebrated.
Right.
Going back to what you said about even if you didn't want to have children, you were considered selfish. So now you're this totally unselfish individual giving of yourself to your children and to your
Yeah.
husband. So you're
Yeah.
celebrated for this, and you've completely ignored um, your woman.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that to throw that out.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially at this age, I've encountered a lot of women who they will all hang together and things like that. And there is when we start talking about the home life. And so those that are married, sometimes it may be blurted out that they're sleeping in separate rooms. It's like, really, and it's like, yeah, and so then that's interesting. And so then if they say, girl, we've been sleeping in separate rooms for 12 years. Now that's a wife talking about her relationship, which is clearly broken, but we stay that collaboration, whether it's a financial arrangement at this point or an emotional arrangement, I'm not doing you, you're not doing me, and we're not leaving what we built together. It is so I guess it's kind of difficult to hear now because I know that there's a woman conversation that needs to be had. For me being married, again, twice. And the second time, knowing that there were a lot of choices for me that were made based on, I'll say, unreasonable expectations, and everything aside from whatever our disconnects were. Once we separated and divorced, there was still a disconnect. And so that's what really made me sit with my woman. It's like, though those, there was some husband wife things, I think the greater longing was, okay, so who are you to you? And, it just seems so basic, but so deep. And it's like, oh my goodness, well, who am I to me? I can, I haven't lived a slowful life. I'm not lying around, just lazy. I mean, I've been thrust into the thick of things and great connections, great friends, all of that. But, I knew that there was something missing in me. And so I am happy to say that one of my declarations for my woman was to be present and accounted for. So I'm trying to be a better listener in terms of what I hear that I need. Balance is a thing that comes to the forefront all of the time. I'm a caregiver for my elderly mom, and even showing up in an ancillary role as a dutiful daughter, it was my woman was still screaming. It's just like, yeah, that too. But what about me? And so I've learned to do things for myself with intention, not if I get a moment. I make the moments. And so when I take care of myself in those spaces like that, then those other things are easier to do. I'm not, constantly living sacrificially. I'm an early riser and I go to bed pretty early, but I am typically satisfied about my day because I have not forgotten about me in my day. So it makes me a better person in all of those other spaces. And that, yeah, if I had any wisdom, any takeaways from this, to implore women is that they would check in with their woman. Let it be a real conversation, not some, it's kind of cute. Oh, because I'm a woman, yeah, all of that, but
I'm a grown woman.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
what the I want to do. And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, all that. And then when you check into it, you're not really doing what you want to do. You're
Right. You
doing
don't
more
even
often
know
than
what
not.
you want to do.
Oh,
You
say
don't
that.
even know who you are really.
Say that, Anne
You've
Renee.
had
And
yeah, yeah, you've had no chance to develop who you are, what you love, what do you want to do. Uh,
Truly,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
truly what you love. And I tell you in my just to give you an example how it doesn't have to be anything heavy, but it just needs to be intentional, because if it is what you intend and you do it, then there is success in your spirit and your emotions, because that's what I wanted. And it may be, it may not be anything big for somebody else, but you're not trying to be their woman. You're trying to be your own woman. And so in that whole balancing piece, when I was now trading my freedom to be a dutiful daughter, and I just kind of saw where that was going, and my love for my mother and all that she would be willing to do for me, in her prime and otherwise, I was all in for her. And so then there was the guilt of, I'm showing up, and I think I didn't even realize that I was occurring as Nurse Ratchet, because I was ticking all of the boxes in my trying to be dutiful. One flew over the cuckoo's nest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it was. My mom seemed to be ungrateful, was the way my flesh took it. You know what I'm saying? Just ungrateful, because I'm doing all of this and she's just not satisfied. And what I realized is that she wanted her daughter, and I had become this caregiver. And so then I still was torn, because I needed to get this done, and I only knew one way to do it. And so when you're now mothering your mother, it's like this is a second childhood for her, and so now I've added one more child to it. I was sinking somewhere, and I started crafting. And so the craft was crocheting. I mean, I never was successful. My aunt tried to teach me that when I maybe was 7, and that didn't work. But I started crocheting. I taught myself how to crochet. And I'm telling you, without getting into the woo, I was led to go to Hobby Lobby and get a crochet hook and some yarn. And I am so glad that I did not blow that off as you're in a midlife crisis and you're going crazy, because why would you be trying to crochet, at I think I may have been 57, something like that. But when I tell you, it was a godsend. So I started teaching myself to crochet. And so this was when I wasn't doing my Nurse Ratchet impersonation. I was, crocheting. And so then in that ease of doing something, discovering something new, I started responding just to doing something for me in a season that required that I pour out something that I wasn't quite ready for. I could do it, but I wasn't quite ready to have my mom. I don't know if you're ever ready, just in this space, because of what she stood for in my life. And so then it gave me, because I was just feeding something in me, it allowed me to understand what she was asking me for, because I now was getting this fulfillment of doing something for myself. I realized that my mom was losing her independence and her freedom. And, that's what I was looking at. It wasn't that she was ungrateful, she was just losing those things that made her who she was, and for her, she was a great mom to me. And now she's not taking care of, great mom, great grandmother, you know what I'm saying? Great mother-in-law. And now all of those things that she was able to do for us, now there's a great need for it to be done for her. And so then there was a loss of that powerful, way she occurred as mother. And so she's now, I know from conversation, she was, there was some regret about her woman, what she didn't do that maybe she could have done, so all of that. So it just me taking some time for myself, pouring in, filling up, getting some inner healing there allowed me to see what she needed more clearly. I wasn't trying to just fit her into my life in a way that worked. I was able to now see her in a different kind of way too. And so then finding things, just doing something intentionally. I travel, but I tell you, I am so intentional with travel now because it is what my woman loves to do. Before it was my escape, and I enjoyed the, trust me, I enjoyed the escape, vacations and things like that. But being intentional, because I know for sure my woman loves to travel. So I travel, with other women. I travel by myself to meet a couple of women or whatever. But that, I mean, it's, I can't even explain except for I am doing something. So whatever your thing is. And so when I brought up the crafting, it was just finding out who you are and remembering that or developing that, because there are things, if you became a mother prematurely, and what I mean prematurely, just a little too young for you to do some things that you may have had as dreams, hopes, or whatever. You may not even share it with anybody, but becoming a mother is a full-time role. I believe that those things start to peep back up at us, and if it was, if you wanted to be a doctor and you weren't able to do that, well, if you're a woman of a certain age, it's like, well, I'm not going to do that. There's a way to find out how to contribute in that arena, though. It's like, I believe that we're still being given opportunities to realize who we were supposed to be, or how we're, the way we're built, how to answer that. And so that is a woman's role. That is a woman's role, because we're that woman before any of those things. And so, just
Yeah,
to
I want
explore
to
it.
jump in.
Mhm.
I
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah,
want
yeah,
to
yeah,
jump in.
yeah.
A couple of things, because I think we're headed here, and whenever we've had Gwen Girl and I've had this conversation a couple of times, and one of the being the TV film head that I am, one of the lines that always come to my mind is from the movie Meryl Streep, and and the director, and he starred in it too, and it's escaping Bridges of
So
Madison
Madison
County,
County,
but
yeah.
I can't think of the actor's name. Clint Eastwood. Um,
Hmm.
and when she's contemplating leaving her family and running off with him, and she decides against that. And one of the things she tells him is that, when you become a mother, you have to stay put. You stop
Mm-hmm.
moving to stay put, to give your children foundation and stability. And that once they become adults, the majority age, go out and start to live their lives independent from you, you're supposed to assume your life again. And she says, and you don't even remember that life. You
Mm-hmm.
don't, so you don't even remember what it is or was to be a woman. You've been this mother, you've been this wife, you function at these high levels, you've done what you were supposed to do, you've done well. And then, it's like, okay, now they're off, and you are to be this woman. You're like, who? I don't know her, I don't recognize her. So a lot of what you're saying is getting back, reacquainting yourself if you hadn't at all, introducing yourself, and if you had at some point, reacquainting yourself with the woman. I like to think my story is a little bit about reacquainting,
Mm.
because when my son actually left for graduate school, uh, it was I felt it immediately. I mean, Gwen Girl and with me blessed us to join us on our trip to leave him to say to leave him there
Yeah.
for school. And I can tell you an immediate feeling came over me of of um of relief, but not in the way like, oh my God, I'm so glad to get rid of him. Not in that way, but just like, okay, now that's done. That
Yeah.
that parenting and that type of place and role and space, that's done.
It
I'm
is
gonna forever
finished.
be his parent as long as I exist. But that's so done. So now what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
do? What are my heart's desire? What is it I want to get into? Because I knew I had all of these things that I wanted to get into. So it was a matter of really finding out, locking it down, and moving in that space. And for me, that felt really exciting, because back when I became a mom, I made a decision. So I made a decision. Here's what I'm not going to try to do a lot of things. I'm not going to date a lot. I'm not going to do certain things. There's only so much time I have. I had to work
Right.
full time. I had to parent full time, and I did it alone. And so I'm not going to try to be all. I'm not a superwoman.
Right.
So
Right.
I'm going to focus in on these few areas of my life and do them well. So immediately upon releasing him, being released from him in that way, I now had to make a decision.
Mm.
What is it that I want to do? I had to
Wow.
start deciding again, and I never felt anything, no regret or anything, but I felt excited.
Hmm.
It was just this phase right here. I am looking so forward to it. I want to see what happens.
And that's so healthy too, because
Hmm.
to now be able to reacquaint yourself as opposed to um what do I do now because I've spent my entire life mothering and it looks like my child doesn't need me, because a lot of mothers feel that way if they've gone, all in and buried themselves in that. But I'm so glad you mentioned that movie, because I think a perfect example of this Trinity of Self was in a line from one of my favorite movies, and the movie was called Living Out Loud, and it
Hmm.
starred Holly Hunter, Danny DeVito, and Queen Latifah. And Holly Hunter's character, she was going through a very emotionally traumatic divorce. And when she finally was going to sign the divorce papers, she was in the elevator with her husband. And there was a line that, well, there's a little bit of backstory. It's like everything that she wanted in this relationship, her, I'm going to say fiance and then later husband, was able to talk her out of. They were both in medical school, and he told her that, they didn't both need to be in medical school, so she became a nurse. She wanted children, and he said children would kind of change, everything that they were, how good that life they had together and all of that. And so then the marriage goes south, and you see in this movie, he has a woman who is a doctor,
Hmm.
and she's pregnant.
He
Okay.
marries her. It's his
He,
wife.
yeah, yeah. Because I'm trying to figure out the property settlement piece because I
Yeah.
couldn't remember. But anyway, so when she finally settles this property piece, um, and
She
she
gets
gets in
the
the
apartment. Is that what you mean?
I'm just whatever it was, because they were just said this was the last time that they were meeting with the attorneys. So I can't even
Yeah,
remember.
well, the part she got the apartment as part of the settlement, and then
Mhm.
when she sees this pregnant wife who is a doctor, she jumps on the ex husband, like she assaults him, and so he won't bring charges against her. He won't press charges against her, but only if she gives up that beautiful apartment she got in the settlement.
Okay. See, yeah.
So I
See,
don't know if
again,
that's what you were looking for.
no, but that's the good backstory. But the point is, when after she has this breakdown in front of all the attorneys and stuff, she goes to get on the elevator, and he's either on it or he gets in with her, but they're both in this elevator, just the two of them. And she turns around and she says, "What was I so afraid of? That you were a better choice." And I remember the first time I heard that line, and that thing for me, it just hit me in my belly. And because I realized that I knew what she was saying. She had given up everything. You know, she had given up everything because of not knowing who she was as a woman.
Hmm.
So when she asked, "What was I so afraid of that you were a better choice?" All of the sacrifices she made for somebody else, she realized that she was afraid of something. And so that is, how the trade offs we make. They said you can't have it all, but I think you can. I really do. It's just balance. It is choosing what's more important. You may not be able to have as much of something, but I think you can taste it. Some things you just need to taste. I can't do all the traveling I want to travel, I want to do. but I make sure I travel. You know what I'm saying? So it's I'm not in this season in my life. I am not afraid of me. I'm not afraid of choices I made in the past that may affect my future. I'm not afraid of I guess opportunities in a way. And when I say afraid of, I have stepped into and up to for a lot of things. And my fatal flaw in not knowing who I was as a woman, um, I may have dialed it back, you know. So instead of going into whatever this thing was 100%, I may have dialed it back to 75%. And the 75% looked, it might have been impressive, and there was always that thing gnawing at me on the inside, that said, you only did 75% of the vision. What are you afraid of? And so there were a lot of things that I now at this stage I am saying yes to. Yes to me, yes to the opportunities. If the opportunities are coming, I'm not considering what I'm not. I'm not considering that. Oh, well, you've never done that before, and da da da. It's okay. If the universe, God for me, if God is sending it my way, that is because it is for me. It is a part of my woman, and typically it's never anything that I don't want to do. It's just something that I've never done. And I would normally just kind of, I don't know, it's going to cause me to be in collaboration in spaces where I may not measure up. Those would have been things that I may have thought, down the line or whatever. Now, I am showing up. And I even had one of my wise girlfriends to tell me, she says, you keep looking for a dream team. And she says, just say yes to the dream and your team will find you. And I'm finding that to be so true, that they are finding me. I don't have to look for them. And that is, as a woman, I'm understanding that, as a woman who was built to do certain things, I am now understanding that and enjoying that. So I am unafraid in this season in my life. Truly, that is not just language. I am unafraid of these opportunities. I am saying yes to those things that I desire and no to those things that I don't. And I don't have to make an excuse. I was like, no, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to do that. Oh, girl, it's a great opportunity. And that. Yeah, but that's not what I want to do. Right. And as fast as I say that's not what I want to do, there is now something that I want to do that is coming, just coming along, coming down the road, if you would. And so then,
so I don't know how I was just going to say, we were to sum it all up.
That's what I was about to do.
I
was about to do that.
All right, hit it.
No, go ahead. So go ahead.
I don't know. Go. I was just making sure we were trying to stay a little time conscious.
So my aha moment in the Trinity of Self is that every characteristic has its place, its timing, its being, its purpose. But the anchor to it all is your woman. And if you develop that woman, your other roles, if you choose to explore them, be in them, commit to them, they will be the fuller because of it. The woman is the anchor for it all. She will serve you well. Take the time to reacquaint yourself if you left her back there somewhere. Take the time to know her if you've never leaned in. Take the time to embrace what it means to be your own woman, because it will serve you well.
And to that, I'll say I'm working on that. Honestly, I'm working on moving out of my own way a lot of times, and to fully, as Gwenn Girl said, be present and to embrace some ideas and some dreams fully without hesitation. And I have gotten in these last 2 years of this second part of my life, I've gotten much better at it. I think I'm about 80%. And so I still have 20% of work to do, but I feel good. I'm not James Brown, but I do feel good. And so that's my aha tag on to what Gwenn Girl said. So this is AnnRenee
and Gwenn Girl.
This is AHA Podcast. We thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.